My name is Alice Mosca and I am the General Manager of IEM. And today I would like to talk to you about risks and opportunities related to the audit program. As you all know, both the new ISO 17025 and the new ISO 19011 adopted the risk-based thinking. And also both standards require that the laboratory establish an audit program. So my challenge here today with you is trying to give you some tips to identify some risks and opportunities regarding the fulfillment of an audit program. If you think about an audit program is much more than just a schedule. Sometimes you tend to think, I'm going to program my audits, so I just need to schedule those audits along a period of time. Well, not true. An audit program also needs to have defined for each audit its scope, the criteria that you are going to use in the conformity evaluation, the audit team, the audit methods that are going to be used. For instance, if you want this method to be witnessed or not, the responsibilities regarding the report and the communication of results, and so on. So an audit program is much more than just a schedule along a period of time. So what can prevent us from fulfilling the audit program? What are the risks of uncompliance of an audit program? Well, we can have, for instance, risks regarding the selection of the auditor's team. One of the risks regarding this issue is the lack of impartiality. Many times, for economic reasons or for other reasons, laboratories choose auditors amongst their own staff. And there is nothing wrong with that. You are allowed to do it, of course, providing that the auditor has no responsibility on the area that he is going to audit. Otherwise, you will have a clear conflict of interests. And let me just stress that the new 7025 requires that if a laboratory identifies a risk to impartiality, it must implement actions to eliminate that risk, or at least to mitigate the risk. Sometimes, trying to prevent the risks of impartiality, labs ask external providers for auditors. And in this case, you must assure that these auditors have the proper knowledge and competence on the technical aspects that they are going to audit. Otherwise, you will have a risk on competence, and you risk having an audit that is not going to be efficient. I'm not saying that it is the case always, but sometimes you can have this risk. We can also have risks regarding planning, and we can be very ambitious sometimes in our plans. For example, if you plan to have several audits and over tests or calibration over several tests or calibrations in a period of time, and that time is not enough to allow the auditors to cover all scope, then you have a risk of not complying with your program. So when we program our audits, we must be aware that the time allocated to each audit must be enough to cover all scope, and also to allow auditors to apply the audit methods defined. For example, if they need to witness some practical work, the time should allow them to do it. Risks can also be related to resources needed to accomplish the audit. For example, having a failure in equipment that is related to a test, or not having samples in the audit day, thus not allowing the auditor to witness the work, can be risks related to resources, and we have to account for that risks. Also, risks can be connected to confidentiality. 7025 stresses the need to keep confidential all data and information from our clients. But of course, in an audit, auditors will have access to confidential information. So it is up to the lab to implement mechanisms that will ensure the confidentiality. And these mechanisms can include contractual clauses regarding this matter, or asking the auditors to sign some confidential statements. But it is also justifiable to restrict the access of some documents, for instance, preventing them to leave the lab. Another type of risks related to the audit program is linked to the cooperation with the auditees. The audit day is always stressful. It is stressful both for auditees and for auditors. And sometimes it is unavoidable that auditees see the audit findings like some kind of criticism towards their work. And if this is the case, the auditees might get uncomfortable and retain information that is important to understand the compliance of the system with the audit criteria. So it is important to reassure the auditees that the audit is not personal. It's not a criticism to their work. But we can also profit from opportunities to improve the audit program. For example, we can allow more than one test or calibration to be audited in the same visit, and this will reduce costs and reduce time, for instance. Or we can also try to minimize time and distance, for instance, choosing a restaurant for lunch that is close to the lab instead of one that is better, but it is far. We can, and with this, we can have more time for the audit. We can try, for instance, to align the audit dates with the availability of the auditees, and the key staff must be present, otherwise the audit will not be effective. So we can try and align the data, assuring that the key staff will be present in the audit day. Of course, all of these risks and opportunities might not apply to your lab. These are just tips for you to identify some risks and opportunities related to the compliance with the audit program. And at the end of the day, it is up to the lab to identify the risks and opportunities that might jeopardize the audit program and decide what they want to do about it. Because you can simply accept the risk if it is not an impartiality risk, or you can mitigate the risk, implement actions to mitigate the risk, implement actions to eliminate the risk. You can share the risk. So it is up to the lab to decide what they want to do about the risks that they find and the opportunities they find. I would like also to let you know that IEM and EC4LE are co-organizing the 5th International Masterclass on the implementation of ISO 17025-2017 from theory to practice. It will be held in Brussels from 25 to 27 November of this year. And this is a very interactive training with problem-based learning, where these subjects or other subjects around 7025 will be addressed by me and my colleagues. And I would be delightful to have you there and to talk a little more about 7025. So thanks for listening. See you soon. Bye-bye.